Hello friends, and welcome back to Stardew Valley Short Stories. This is episode number 2 of Stardew Valley Short Stories. Today's story is Stardew Valley by beyondthelimit8266, and the story can be found on Archive of Our Own and will be linked beneath this video. This story is a simple but funny slice of life piece about Stardew Valley. Avery revives Bean Tree Farm. Grandpa had sworn up and down that this land was good farming land, with good and fertile soil. From where Avery was standing, it seemed most like an untamed jungle, clogged up with untrimmed weeds and downed tree limbs. Mayor Lewis seems to sense his despair, and claps him on the shoulder, shining down on him with a toothy politician's smile. "Don't sweat it, son. I know she doesn't look like much, but there's good soil beneath all of that." Over his shoulder, Avery can hear the carpenter. She had said her name was Robin, let out a snicker that made the blood rush to his cheeks. He was not a farmer, far from it. And it was probably obvious from his expensive jeans and clean nails. Even Robin, a woman he had just met 2 minutes ago at the bus stop, could tell that cleaning up this overrun landscape was a Herculean task for a city boy such as him. Mayor Lewis shoots Robin a look that makes her coyly hush up, and he herds Avery forward towards the meager cabin that stands on top of the hill overlooking the land. "You'll be living in your grandfather's cabin," he says with a dazzling grin. "It's a good home. Very rustic." The rustic cabin in question looks more like a glorified shed, in Avery's opinion. It's a little more than a sad square of wood with a simple yellow door and mottled windows. The roof's fish scale shingles are sun-bleached and peeling, and the yellowing paint on the walls has been chipped away to near non-existence. The open awning attached to the house holds little more than the dwindling remains of what had once been firewood. Avery had understood that, towards the end of his life, his grandfather had been physically unable to continue much of the demanding labor of farming, but he hadn't comprehended just how bad it had gotten until this moment. Robin speaks up. "Rustic is a word for it. Crusty is more apt, though." Mayor Lewis casts another heated glare her way, but Avery chuckles under his breath. He appreciates Robin's honesty. He doesn't need to be seduced into staying with Mayor Lewis's real estate smile. His grandfather had left him this farm, and Avery will be damned if he doesn't do something with it. It had once been his grandpa's pride and joy. He couldn't live with himself if he just let it rot away into nothing while he sat in a cubicle, working away in an office job that he couldn't care less about. Lewis hears his laugh and relaxes minutely, seemingly realizing that he can drop the salesman voice. "Don't listen to her, Avery. She's just trying to make you dissatisfied so you'll hire her for renovations." Now it's Robin's turn to blush, and she turns away with a huff, apparently shamed into silence. Avery doesn't mind. He probably will end up buying one of her house expansions, but not anytime soon. With the meager funds Grandpa had left him and his own unassuming bank account, Avery will have his work cut out for him in shaping this forest into something resembling a productive farm. Mayor Lewis continues to guide Avery onto the dilapidated porch and takes the liberty of opening the cabin door for him to enter. The inside of the cabin is as underwhelming as the outside, dusty with disuse and abandonment. There's a twin bed pushed into the corner, topped with only a quilt and a pillow. Across from the bed is a dense television, sat on the floor and looking like it had seen better days. At the foot of the bed is a dusted trunk. In the left-hand side of the cabin is a wood stove, with no refrigerator to accompany it. The lopsided table and matching chair lurk in the middle of the cabin's lonely living space. Avery sheepishly clears his throat and says, "Feels like home already." Avery discovers very quickly that the only method of bathing available is the outdoor shower Grandpa had attached to the backside of the cabin. The water is warm enough, but Avery is uncomfortable with the flimsy wooden divides that separate his naked ass with the wilderness of the farm. He feels as though he's one strong gust of wind away from being completely nude with no cover. He washes quickly, wraps himself in a towel, and flees back to the cabin. Warming himself by the wood stove he fed with the last remains of the firewood under the awning, Avery digs through his suitcase for a change of clothes. He pulls on a pair of jeans he got last Christmas, and a flannel he had bought when he went as a lumberjack for Halloween, for a party several years back. Standing in the middle of his single-room cabin, pulling on his boots that he used to wear only for hikes, Avery feels more like a little kid in a farmer costume than someone who is now an actual owner of a farm. He's inexperienced, He knows less about growing and cultivating crops than he does about fixing up an old house. Regardless of whatever misplaced faith Grandpa had in him, Avery knows he's well and truly fucked. Avery exhales heavily, and then inhales again slowly. Alright, one thing at a time. One thing at a time. He opens the trunk of the head of the bed and finds inside a set of tools. Much like the rest of the farm, they're rusted and in poor shape, but Avery pulls them out regardless. A pickaxe, a hatchet, a shovel, a scythe, a hoe, and a... Avery pauses and ducks closer to the trunk to take a closer look. Is this a fucking sword? He asks himself incredulously, and yes, what he is holding looks like a rudimentary steel short sword, as if plucked straight from medieval times. Avery scoffs and drops the sword back in the trunk with a jarring clang. Avery hauls the tools, sans blade, out onto the porch where he lays them out. The sunlight minutely gleams on the rusted metal of the pickaxe, and Avery smiles with an air of determination. Alright, we'll start with you. Avery grins and lifts the pickaxe. It's startlingly heavy, but Avery is far from weak. He walks about the large swath of land, breaking apart stones with the sharp tooth of the pickaxe and prying buried rocks from the dirt with a flat spade end. Towards the outskirts of the farm, almost tucked into an alcove of trees, is a boulder. Avery can honestly say that he has no fucking clue how such a thing happened to end up in the land unless it literally fell from the sky. But he does soon figure out that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. His weary pickaxe glances right off the rock without any indication it did any damage. Shit, Avery startles as his pickaxe ineffectively bounces right back at him. I guess my pick isn't strong enough to break this thing. As the sun slinks down below the horizon, Avery continues his work. Once all of the rocks have been pried loose and broken down into pebbles that he haphazardly mixes into the soil, Avery picks up the hatchet and begins hacking at the fallen branches and the skeletal trees that littered the land. Much like the boulder, Avery finds that there are several deep brown tree stumps that his hatchet can do little against. He leaves those alone to instead continue ruthlessly chopping away at trees his hatchet can handle, the wood of which he stores under the awning. After several long hours, with the sun finally hidden behind the horizon and his sweat cooling on his brow, Avery's new yard has been mostly cleared of the lingering trees and stones. There's still a cluster of remaining debris at the far edge of the farm that Avery decided to leave for tomorrow. And overgrown grass and weeds still clog up most of the land, but Avery figures this is a good first step. He checks his watch. 12 a.m. It's getting late. Well, he announces to himself, a productive first day. I guess Bean Tree Farm is back in business. Avery gives one last look at his new farm, still unkempt and overgrown, but decidedly cleaner and decidedly his. He got his work cut out for him, sure, but his grandpa had left this farm to him for a reason, right? Avery heads back into the cabin, kicks off his now mud-speckled boots, strips down to his underwear, and collapses onto the twin bed. He's out cold before he can even cover himself up with a quilt. And once again, that is Stardew Valley by beyondthelimit8266. Again, this can be found on Archive of Our Own and will be linked beneath this video. If you'd like to submit your own story, there will also be a link beneath this video to submit a story of your own. You can write a whole new story or just submit a link if you've already posted it on a blog elsewhere. If you're listening to the audio podcast of the story, you can also find a link to submit things anywhere on any single profile of mine, The Anime Athlete. In my link tree, there will be a button to submit your story if you'd like to submit one. And yes, this is now available on most podcasting platforms. I am still working on getting it on a few other platforms, but it is available on several different podcasting platforms. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to download and listen and share it with your friends. Keep up with me on all of my social media channels. I'm The Anime Athlete everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, you name it. Join the Discord to ask any questions about Stardew Valley or other cozy gaming. Get behind the scenes content, early access to videos, and more on my Patreon, and come play Stardew and other cozy games with me live on Twitch and also on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and have a good rest of your night.